Sorry. Okay, go on. I didn't know you.
Um, the beauty of plant-based medicine is you get people on a whole food plant-based diet, you oatmeal and fruit for breakfast, and lunches and dinners of big salads and hearty vegetable soups and big plates of steamed green and yellow veggies and curries and stir fries and casseroles. It's a wonderful cuisine. And within days of especially eliminating the oils and the flour products and the hidden dairy, which can plague vegans, new vegans there, it's just stunning what happens. The obesity starts to melt away, and the arteries relax and open up, and the high blood pressure comes down, and the sore joints stop hurting, and the psoriatic skin starts to clear up, and the asthmatic lungs don't wheeze so much, and the migraine headaches get better. And they turn into normal, healthy people right in front of your eyes. It's the most exciting transformation in medicine. And yet, in medical education, we blow right past the patient's diet. Like we practice medicine
Right.
like what our patients are eating has no effect on these diseases.
Ay, ay, ay.
When that's exactly why they're sitting in front of you, doctor, from what they're putting in their mouth.
How how much nutrition education do doctors usually get?
Essentially none. And they're so busy trying to learn the biochemistry and the physiology and the pharmacology and pretty soon what I call pharmacosclerosis sets in their brains. They think the drugs are the only surgery, the only treatment, and they're trying to treat dietary toxicity with surgery, and it doesn't work. It's just unplugging one little obstruction in the artery when the entire arterial tree is all clogged up, and it's band-aid medicine.
Right, right.
I've got a slide with these with all these diseases listed there, and I click it and it says reversible. Every one of these diseases is reversible. The
Wow. Right.
high blood pressure and inflammatory arthritis and Crohn's disease and asthma, they go away with a healthy diet. And then I click it again. It says a controversial question, but do you want to heal these patients or don't you? I
Right.
mean, really, why'd you go into medicine? If you want to heal these patients, then get real about what they're eating, because that's why they're sitting in front
Well,
of you.
the problem is the nutrition background that doctors have comes from very biased sources. And culturally, we come from a culture of meat eating. And, look at menus and it's meat, 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 meat. So this is a pretty revolutionary thing. But isn't it like I feel like there's such a great joy in eating this way. There's that whole other side. It's not just escaping disease, but it's moving towards, like, that's why I call this an extraordinary life, because I eat this foods, it's full of color and flavor, and then your taste buds change and you appreciate the things that before you might have turned your nose up at. But I'd like to ask you, Dr. Klaper, can you briefly tell us, and you have a history, you grew up in dairy farm, didn't you?
I
Can
did.
you give us your little spiel about dairy and what you experienced? Because that's a tough one. A lot of people say I could go vegan, but I can't give up cheese. Or they
Yeah,
think vegan cheese is full of chemicals. And granted, it's a processed food, but my feeling is meeting people where they're at, they're not going to want to give up lasagna and pizza. Come on, so you can give them some vegan cheese, is okay. So
absolutely,
what can you
absolutely.
tell us about your background and how you got to be plant-based and growing up
Sure.
in dairy?
Yeah, and I'm all for the vegan burgers and cheeses as a transition food. If it helps Joe meat and potatoes guy, try to get into the plant based world, it's fine with me to put some on his pizza. I'm totally in agreement with you. Um, yes, I just spent my first 16 summers on my uncle's dairy farm in northern Wisconsin. I've been driving tractors and slinging hay bales since I was 9 or 10, and I grew up. I went to school in Chicago in the winters and spent my summers on the farm. And been milking cows since I was a little kid, and I thought it was natural that cows give milk, but it's not. Now, when a cow gets fertile, we would lock her up in the stanchion and call the man from Badger Breeders, and he would come out and ram a big tube of bull semen up into her uterus there and make her pregnant. And she would stop giving milk. Pregnant mammals don't lactate. And my uncle would write down, oh, bossy number 17 won't give milk until the spring, till she has her calf. But the only reason these cows are giving milk is that they just, like all mammals, they just had a baby. And to keep that milk flowing, you got to keep making the cow pregnant. And They carry the baby for 9 months, just like a human mother does. They give birth to a 65-pound baby, if you can imagine. uh, and uh, and within 48 hours shortly, but usually the next day, my uncle would come, and the calf is sucking on the mother's udder, and he'd whip her right off and throw the calf into a pickup truck and
Uh,
send her back to the veal pen.
horrific.
And
Oh,
though
oh,
I shouldn't say that. He would take the calf, put her in the veal pen about 10 yards down in the barn where the pickup truck wouldn't come for a few weeks later. And the most painful auditory memories I have is the sound of a mother cow locked up in her stanchion with her baby 10 yards away in the veal pen. And she would bellow to this baby hour after hour, the most heartrending, soul tearing cries because she couldn't nurse her baby. It's a primordial urge. And it would go on for days, hour after hour, all night she would call this child. And for 3, 4, 5 days it would go on. And
oh my
and I was an 8-year-old kid. I didn't. Why is it? Well, she's looking for her baby. And okay, I thought that's just the way it had to be. But I
God.
didn't realize the inherent cruelty in all dairy products. You must keep making those cows pregnant. You must take that calf away from the baby, from the
And
mother.
how do they get the sperm from the bulls? That's a pretty awful thing.
Well, they
We don't have
masturbate
to
the.
talk about
There's a
it.
whole
It's pretty
there's
bad.
a whole industry on gathering semen, and it's a perversion of the natural process. And speaking of perversion of the process, as I mentioned, back in the 50s, when the cow would get pregnant, she'd stop giving milk. Pregnant mammals don't lactate by and large. But we milked 49 cows, and it was a small operation. In today's modern dairy operations, they're milking 1,000, 1,500 cows twice a day. They can't afford to have their best milkers go offline for 9 months at a time while they're carrying their calf. So they've genetically modified the cows. And so now today's modern dairy cows, they're all pregnant. They will give milk all the way through their next pregnancy. They're carrying their next calf, but they're still giving milk. Well, when a human female is pregnant, her whole body's full of estrogen and it gets into the milk. And so this estrogen they're sucking off is full of estrogens.
Mm,
And we're telling the little kids, oh, eat your ice cream, eat your yogurt, eat your cheese for that calcium. But meanwhile, little girls are going through puberty at age 8 and 9 and
right,
10, all
right.
these bovine estrogens. The more dairy a boy eats, the higher his risk of prostate cancer because estrogens make the prostate gland unstable. This is it's baby calf growth fluid. It's great if you're a baby calf, but if you're a human, and this is just for kids, the problem it shuts down the boy's testosterone because it's full of estrogen, and the studies clearly been done. But the scary thing is that if a woman has a breast lump, this like throwing gasoline on a fire. She's eating baby calf growth fluid full of
Right,
estrogens.
right.
So it makes breast lumps get bigger, makes uteruses get bigger, because some fibroids, makes them get hysterectomies.
Mm,
It's for baby calves, and so between the cruelty involved and the truth of what dairy products do to the diet, and the protein makes your nose run, it makes eczema worse. It's again, I tell people, go look in the mirror. If you got a big snout and you got big ears and whiskers and a tail, if you're a baby calf, cool, man, enjoy your.
I saw a post that said, "Call." How do you know? It said, "Call your mother. If she says moo, then then it's okay. If she says hello, you should be
Exactly,
scary."
exactly. But I think the most powerful one was a poster I saw at the Farm Animals Reform Movement. You're looking at a baby calf in a veal crate, and they're chained by the neck so they can't move, so their muscles don't get tight, and they're lying in their own feces. They can't
Oh,
even turn around. But so the baby's laying down in a bunch of manure, and he's looking back at
oh,
those big calf eyes, and the caption is, are you, thinking about eating some cheese or veal? Are you really that hungry?
yeah,
You
really.
pay for this. You're really that hungry. And that
Well, what
cat's
about
all
the casomorphines and all of the wonderful things that have become like woven into the fabric of our society that are dairy. It can be a very difficult thing for people to,
Oh,
get away
absolutely.
from, like especially desserts, So
Yeah.
because we
When
don't eat a lot of desserts, I said, look, if you're really having a hard time and it's freaking you out, and you're up somebody's house and they're serving a cheesecake and you really want it, I wouldn't eat it, but don't, don't make yourself crazy over it. Just start with the big things first,
yeah.
and like add more plants like that. What made you go plant-based then? How would
Right, I'll tell you, but yeah, before we leave the dairy, people say I can't do without my cheese. But as you said, there's all sorts of vegan cheeses now. Enjoy them, use
and there,
them if they help you.
yeah,
Vegan ice
and like
cream.
there's casomorphines in dairy that are addictive, right? Is that a big problem?
Yeah, exactly. It's nasty stuff on so many levels. But you can easily transition away from it. And there's so many milks to pour in your cereal now, oat milk and hemp milk, and there's really no reason to be using dairy
Oh,
products.
I didn't.
So
Cashew. Yeah.
leave the leave as you said. Ask your mother if she says moo. If she doesn't say moo, then don't be consuming dairy. One of your question asks, what type of food is considered vegan? Anything that did not involve an animal in its production. If it had a mother or father or eyes, you don't want to eat it. Okay, it came from some living creature. But if it grew out of the ground, it's vegan. So enjoy that. That's a rough way to look at it.
Yeah.
There's subtleties involved.
That would be all produce,
Yeah, all
all
produce.
fruits and vegetables, all grains, all legumes and beans and nuts and seeds. And there's something like 300,000 species of edible plants in the world, and we eat maybe 20. And as time goes by, we're going to be harvesting. We're going to be discovering more and more foods as we shift to plant based. And you find that your food choices skyrocket, the increase. You have much more variety when you do plant based. So go.
Yeah, well answered. She just said something really beautiful. And you can do it in every international cuisine. You can do it
Yeah,
Italian and Chinese and East
yeah.
Indian and Mexican. Yeah, go crazy with the seasonings. Just, make it bean chili instead of beef chili. It's
Or
not that
put
sacrifice.
some put some vegan beef crumbles in it. There you go.
Indeed, absolutely. Now you have vegan beef crumbles there. Absolutely.
But not too
So,
many.
so how did I become plant-based? I told the story a lot, but two forces came together so I had no choice. It was 1981. I was working as a resident in anesthesiology in Vancouver, and I was on the cardiovascular anesthesia service, dealing with people's hearts and blood vessels. Day after day, I'm putting people to sleep and I'm watching surgeons open their chest and open up their coronary arteries and pull this yellow guck out of their arteries called atherosclerosis. There are already studies in the book showing what that's basically the fat of the animals these people are eating. And one day, a particularly yellow, slithery, rubbery piece comes out, and I'm thinking,
Oh,
boy, this stuff looks like chicken fat.
ew.
Little voice on my shoulder says, "There's a good reason why it looks like chicken fat. It is chicken fat and cow fat
Oh,
and the fat of the animals are he's eating." And there's already studies showing a plant-based diet will melt this stuff away from the inside.
wow.
And my dad died of clogged arteries. I know I've got those
So
genes, and I knew
a
that if I
plant-based
didn't.
diet will melt away that gunk in your artery.
Absolutely. Oh, been shown
Wow.
conclusively. Yeah, it's a
How do
reversible
you know
disease.
how it does that? Like,
Sorry?
do you know the physiology of how it does that? How are there any plant-based foods that are better specifically for that? Would that be like produce and things like that, and legumes, or just anything plant-based?
Oh, no. I really urge you, if anyone listening to this has clogged arteries, especially if they're symptomatic, you got angina, you got chest pain when you walk, or your leg turns blue when you walk, or you're having mini strokes, if you clearly have sign of artery disease, then plaques building up, this is an inflammatory disease from your diet. These artery walls are getting injured. Well, and it's from the meats and the dairies and the oils and the fried foods and the high fructose corn syrup and the cola drinks and the phosphoric acid in the cola drinks, the chemical assault that we launch meal after meal against our arteries is what sets these plaques off. Well, if you stop doing that, and you eat especially dark leafy green vegetables, you have some kale or broccoli. Well, Dr. Esselstyn has his folks eat them every few, 3, 4 times a day.
Wow.
keep these antioxidants in your bloodstream
Mhm.
constantly.
Oh,
As the
right.
weeks go by, the antioxidants work their way into the plaques, neutralize the free radicals, and these plaques start washing away in the blood flow. They get smaller and smaller,
Incredible.
and they regress. And there's very dramatic angiograms,
So
arterial,
incredible. Yeah.
showing these plaques melting away and the arteries opening up. It's a reversible disease. Yeah, absolutely.
Isn't there that
So
one meme by Dr. Esselstyn where people say, tells them to go on a plant-based diet, and they say, well, that seems pretty extreme. And the doctor says, yeah, well, cutting open your chest and all the things that you have to do, surgery, chopping up your body and going, some people would say that's pretty extreme.
that's
Boy,
pretty
it costs
extreme,
like a
right?
few $100,000 to do that too. And so
Exactly.
much cheaper just to buy plant-based foods.
Really? Oh, but not eating cheeseburgers. Oh
I know.
my heaven, that's extreme.
Right.
We Homo sapiens, we're a funny species. So so anyway, I knew I was going to be laying on that operating table with that striker saw going up my sternum if I didn't change my diet because it was evident for me
Uh,
medically. But at the same time, I had been seriously pursuing a life of nonviolence. I had worked in the trauma unit at Cook County Hospital in Chicago during medical school, and it just shook me what I saw humans do to each other. And I
oh,
vowed to get the violence out of my own life.
um,
And so I started reading Mahatma Gandhi and the Indian saints and about
oh,
trying
wow.
to live a life of nonviolence, of ahimsa.
Right. Right.
And one night I'm out with a friend, I'm an anesthesia resident in Vancouver, and I'm pontificating about living a life of nonviolence while I'm polishing off a porterhouse steak at the local Kagan Cleaver. And he looks at me with great compassion and says, that's all very nice, Michael, but if you want to get the violence out of your life, you might start with that piece of meat on your plate,
Right.
because in satisfying your desire for the taste of flesh in your mouth, you are paying for the death of the animal
Right.
and for the next one in line at the slaughterhouse. And as soon as he said that, all the old rationalization jumped into my head. Well, the animal's dead already, and that's what they raised them for, and all that. But before I could get the words out of my lips, that little voice on my shoulder said, he's right.
Right.
He's right.
Right.
And when I went up to pay for the meal, I felt complicit in a cry because I know these beautiful animals. I saw the old
Right.
dairy cow shot in the head. I chopped the heads off chickens. I know the reality of farm life and what it takes to put meat on the table. You
Right.
can't do it without violence. It's an inherently violent food, and I'm paying for the guy in the slaughterhouse to cut those animals' throats.
Right.
And so between what I was seeing in the operating room and what I knew in my heart that night to be true, I said, well, that's the end of my meat eating. Well, my body loved it. Again, I just ordered the bean chili instead of the beef chili, and all that implies. Well, within 12 weeks, a 20-pound spare tire of fat had melted off my waist. My high blood pressure came to normal. My high cholesterol came to normal. I felt great waking up in a nice lean body every day. And there was no looking back as far as my health goes. And at that point, I knew I didn't want to be an anesthesiologist and spend my time putting people to sleep. I'd rather go back to general practice and help them wake up. And so I did. I left with 6 months to go of my anesthesia residency, much to my parents' dismay. I went back to general practice, but now I knew what to tell my patients. I found people who gave plant-based cooking lessons, and I'd send them
Oh,
to
right.
people.
It's really
And,
important
and
to
the
get
same thing would happen
educated.
to my
Yeah.
patients. They would get
Really
leaner, their
important.
high
Yeah.
blood pressure come
Right.
down. And I've been the happiest doctor I know ever since. My patients get healthy.
Right. Yeah, there are some great resources too, different like there's Veganuary, there's all kinds of things online. And on my website, I have some of those resources too. And I actually can also do coaching. I have a coaching background and I have the vegan lifestyle coach educator from Victoria Moran. And so I have a lot of new nutrition knowledge and
Great.
people, I want
Okay.
people here to understand what an incredible opportunity that Dr. Klaper is offering. You've been in a bunch of documentaries, all the big ones like What the Health. What are some of the documentaries you've been in?
Well, I was in What the Health. I was in Cowspiracy.
Right.
I was in Diet for New America. If you go to my website, drklaper.com, you'll see all that stuff
Oh,
in
okay.
your videos. So,
Okay, good. Yeah.
and if I could spell it out, it's all spelled out, DOCTORKLAPER.com. Oops.
DOCTOR. Oh, you're going to type it in for us? Okay, great.
Uh, right,
Yeah. Okay.
drklaper.com.
Fabulous.
Right.
That's wonderful because I know I've seen so many of your videos and I've watched you and I've heard you talk about your dairy background. That's why I wanted to ask something. It's such a, I'm telling you, when I finally get an objective grasp on these things, it's such an enormous, like, whoa, it's so obvious, and it's just so simple and it's so clear. And it's like, we're not baby cows. You know what I mean? And then when I
Well,
learned all of the science behind plant, it's so important to have that science,
yeah,
science
and we
behind
get,
it. It's just, there's no question. And right now, there is a recent study that you've probably seen at Oxford University, which is typically very plant-based friendly. And they said they did something like 30,000 people of different diets. And they claimed that, now the people that were reporting on the study claimed that vegans showed a higher rate of fractures. But if
mhm,
you look behind who did that study, and these were people that were interpreting the study, and then if you go to the very end of the whole thing there, this thing that says, well, actually, if you have a really well balanced diet, you should be fine. So can you address that? Because there's a lot of misinformation and it's very hard to sift through it. People really don't know which way to go, and it's very hard.
right, sure.
Is that
It's a complex subject. Again, I'll invite people to go to my website, drklaper.com, and I have a video there called Healthy Bones. And I go into this whole thing. I'm going to give you a 2-minute capsule answer here, but if you go to my video, my website, and see the Healthy Bones video, you'll get all this. But basically, the um, osteoporosis is not a disease of calcium deficiency so much as, and you just can't take calcium pills and drink milk and expect your bones to get strong. That's not what the disease is. Your bones are alive, and just like your muscles, if you use your muscles, they hypertrophy and get nice and strong. But if you stop using them, they atrophy. They turn into guacamole. Well, same thing with your bones. If you use them, bones get stronger. You've got cells in your bones called osteoblasts, and the more you use them, the more those cells spin out bone, and the bones get stronger. The bone density of a professional tennis player, serving arms, got a lot more bone density than the non-dominant arm. The more you use the bones, the stronger they get. It's called Wolff's law of bones physiology, and it's known. And we used to be physical. We used to spend our lives out gathering firewood and working in the garden using heavy tools and carrying buckets and shingles. And we used to be physical creatures. You slept good every night because you were working all day. And your osteoporosis wasn't an issue then. Your bones stayed strong even to the advanced years. Your grandma's out in the garden working with the hose and the spades, and she's maintained strong bones there. But welcome to the 21st century. We've become sedentary. We sit when we eat, we sit when we travel, we sit when we work, we sit, we
right?
sit, we sit, we sit, and our bones are dissolving. Osteoporosis is largely disuse atrophy of the bones. The bones are dissolving, and just taking calcium pills isn't going to magically stop that. Now, there's some things that make it worse: acid foods, too much meat, too much sugar, fried food, too much salt, too much sugar increases the bone dissolution. That's true, but you just can't reverse it by taking calcium pills. Though you got to build those bones up. Those cells, those osteoblasts are still in your bones. They're waiting for you to ask them to do something. And so in the video, Dr. Furman's videos on reversing it, we're all saying the same thing. Use your bones. Never miss a chance to walk upstairs.
Oh,
Never
right.
miss a chance to carry packages. But get yourself a little weighted vest off Amazon. Grab a couple of 3-pound hand weights and go for a walk. There's 1,000 steps in a mile. You walk a mile,
Well,
and
maybe for
1,000
you, you're kind of
times
tall, you got long legs. For me, a
the,
mile's a little bit longer.
1,000 times. That weight is put a little, that weight vest is put a little wow of gravity
Ah,
down your spine, down your hips, down your legs, and your bone cells start responding. And as the weeks go by, your bones get stronger. You clean up your diet, eat lots of veggies, you need the vitamin K and all that. That's true. And you need those greens for the calcium. You need about 700 milligrams of calcium a day. You don't need 1,500.
oh,
700 milligrams a day, but use your bones. And if you do
right.
that, bones get stronger again. So that's the scoop on it. So what about the vegan study? It's true vegans eat very little calcium, but you don't need much. You really only need about 2 to 300 stuff it is. Most folks get it. What they're looking at, it turns out there's a bell-shaped curve, and the people who were getting the most fractures in the vegans community were the really light, petite vegan women, the 92-pound women, these little sylph women. They asked so
Definitely
little
not
of
me.
their bones the gravitational stress on these bones are about zero. And the ballet dancers, even as the runners, they're running off the top of their feet, they just prance on the earth. There's no stress on their bones. And when they fall, they can break their wrist, etc. But you can reverse that. They want to build up their muscles, and another 4 or 5 pounds of muscles really helps, not only for the weight, but if you fall, a muscular woman, the odds are she's not going to break anything. She'll bruise, but she
Right.
won't fracture. And so you really want to build up those muscles. Don't go into your advanced years a frail, skinny little old woman. You run into real problems that way. But if you keep your bone mass up during the
Right.
middle years, you
I,
shouldn't break your
I
bones.
I also teach exercise, and I have people exercise their lower legs, because the ankle joint is the first to kick in should we lose our balance. And it's something,
Hmm.
especially as older people. So a lot of people exercise, they kind of forget about their calf muscles and the front and the back. And so I always make sure that people do that. And I just wanted to throw that in there a little bit.
Indeed, keep your balance.
So we
Don't
have a
fall.
question here about fat. No, Dr. Klaper, I don't want to overextend our welcome. So
We can
you're
have
more than
another
welcome to stay as long as you want.
another 10 minutes, then I got to go.
Okay, so we have a question. Are there any fats you recommend? Is it true that the brain needs fat as fuel?
Absolutely. And there are healthy fats. The point is get your fats out of whole foods that are abundant in omega-3 fats. That's a handful of walnuts. You grind up in our fridge, we've got a jar of ground up hemp seeds, flax seeds, and chia seeds. It's a lovely, nutty tasting powder.
Right,
And
right.
I throw a couple of tablespoons of that into my oatmeal. I throw it onto my salads. And the linolenic acid in these seeds turns into the good fats, the DHA and
Right.
EPA in your
Now,
brain. So dark green
fuel,
leafy
for,
vegetables have some.
uh, for
Pardon me?
fuel, I always
Yeah.
thought that our brain for fuel needed glucose, but it needed fat for structural component, or fat
Very good.
around, or the myelin sheath, I guess the thing that connects, there's fats around the things that connect nerves. So that's where you need the fats. So that would be for nerve connectivity. But for fuel, we actually need glucose, which only comes from carbohydrates. So it makes me crazy when people go, I'm on a low carbohydrate diet, because I always say carbohydrates are not a food group, they're a nutrient. Protein is a nutrient, not a food group. I knew you'd like that.
Very good. Important distinction. I hope everybody got what she was saying.
I'll
She's
say
right. It is the way this question was phrased. The brain needs fats as fuel. No, it really runs on carbohydrates, on sugars, as the preferred
glucose.
fuel is
Yeah.
glucose, can run on ketones somewhat. And being ketosis for a few days is okay. You don't want to stay in ketosis, though, week after week. Don't eat a
Yeah.
ketogenic diet. But going into ketosis for a few days, once a month, it's a good thing for the
Yeah.
body. But getting back to this person's question, and she's absolutely right. For fuel, you need glucose, but you need some fats for structure, for myelin sheaths, etc., and membrane function.
Right.
And so, yes, the DHA and EPA.
Right.
Again, you can make it out of the greens and the healthy nuts and seeds,
Now,
but
I
also
take an omega-3
algae.
supplement just to be
I'm sorry.
sure. I might as well ask you. I do take a vegan omega-3 supplement just to be
Right, that's just where I was going, but it's
okay.
also found in algae, and you can
Right.
get algae-derived DHA. If you're over 50, you should probably be taking it If you are a
How
pregnant
about over
woman, you ought to
65?
be taking it. I don't know if a healthy, vigorous 20-year-old vegan kid who's eating lots of walnuts and hemp seeds and chia seeds, I don't know if he really needs to be taking
Right.
DHA on top of it. But once you get past 50 and it's certainly if you're pregnant, yes, you ought to be taking
Okay,
supplemental DHA about 300 milligrams a day.
that's great. Are there any other questions for Dr. Klaper?
The last name's pronounced Clapper,
Oh,
by the way.
Clapper.
Yeah,
I
right.
always get that wrong.
That's okay.
You
No,
always
it's
do.
you would think if you pronounce
You
it,
have to put another
like
P
you
in
should be
there if you want
spelled.
people to pronounce it right.
Yeah, right.
Because
But
in
it,
English, the A with only one
it
consonant
should
follows
be, you're correct. It was a reasonable introduction. Absolutely.
Clapper. Okay.
Uh,
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I have any
yeah.
other questions either, but yeah. Anything else you
Well,
want to add about the joy of living this way? And
yeah, it's not that hard and it's not a crazy thing to do. We are plant-eating hominids. We've got the same digestive system basically that our gorilla and bonobo cousins have, and they're up in the trees eating leaves and fruit tonight. And that's basically what we should be eating. We've got fingers on our hands, not claws. We got a long digestive system for digesting fiber. We've got
what
saliva that has
what
starch
about our
digestion.
canine teeth?
And
What
these
about these?
big teeth. Thank you for mentioning that. And I've got some wonderful slides. Well, these canines. But if you think about running out to the nearest cow you see, jumping on its back, open your mouth and take a big bite out of its backside with your big canines, what are you going to find? Well, you're going to find that your mouth is very small and your teeth are very short. You can't bite through that muscle,
Okay,
that animal's hide.
Dr. Clapper is
Yeah.
not saying we should do that. Let's put a
No,
disclaimer.
I'm saying that if you trade,
Dr.
they're
Clapper
not
is not
saying.
suggesting anybody jump on a cow.
Right. I'm saying if you do that, you'll find that these
I
are
know.
not flesh-eating teeth. They
We're
don't,
recording this.
you can't even bite through the hide, let alone its muscle. We're
Right.
not flesh eaters.
Yeah.
What these are really for, and the true fuel that got our Paleolithic ancestors through those ancient times, which we can deduce by looking at the fossilized fecal droppings of the Neanderthals and the Cro-Magnon folks. They are massive. They were
Yeah.
eating huge amounts of fiber. And
Right.
the truth is that most of the calories brought into the Paleolithic camp were gathered by the women who spent all day digging up these starchy roots and tubers. That's most of the calories came in were carbohydrate calories in these starchy corms and
Right.
roots and tubers that would last all year, that you could throw into a pot and soften them. And
Wow.
that's what these teeth are for. They're great for biting into potatoes and into carrots and into
Carrots,
starchy root
apples.
and
Yeah.
into apples, into fruits. That's what these little stubby canines are really for. And when you look at, if you look up Dr. Nathaniel Dominy, Dominy, he's an anthropologist from Dartmouth.
Dominy.
Right, Dr. Nathaniel Dominy, and put in the word starchivore. And because he says that is what we've always been. We were starchivores then, we are starchivores now. It means we eat starches. That's the fuel that really gets us through.
Right. Yeah.
That's what our stubby little
Dr.
canine.
McDougall talks about being starch eaters too,
Right, we
One,
are.
one thing I tell people, because this whole paleo thing is really like buying, like really you want to eat like a caveman. Why would you want to take advice from people who basically didn't live past 25 or 30,
Right.
who knew nothing about nutrition, and who basically grunted to communicate? Why are you taking nutrition? Why would you want him?
Excellent point. That's an excellent point. But again, we were plant eaters then. We're plant eaters now.
Yeah.
Eat
Yeah.
plants in as whole a form as possible. Don't eat much stuff out of packages and boxes. Eat things that grew out of the garden:
Yeah.
cucumbers, tomatoes, corn, rice. Eat whole plant
Well,
food, and magic happens in your body. Your
I
body
know
will know what to do with it.
there are some good veggie burgers, and I always look at the
Yep.
ingredients, and those are nice because they're a quick, easy fix for
Yep.
a meal, and then you can steam up some veggies with it, because not everybody has all that time to spend in the kitchen. I know sometimes I love to be in the kitchen a lot, and other times I'm like tonight I ordered out some food from the land of Kush. So there are some, but always look at the ingredients, and like some of them are pretty good. They're not, you don't get all the
Yeah, exactly. But the trick, if you're getting into it, is make these big batch,
Oh,
whatever you're
right,
making, you
right,
make a big crock pot full of soup in your slow cooker. When it's ready, take a bunch of Tupperware freezer container, fill them up with soup, let it cool, put lids on them, put them in the freezer. Now you got frozen soup portions, bring them out, heat them and eat them when you don't want to cook.
fabulous.
Um,
Right,
you make about 30 veggie burgers with a good recipe, put those in the freezer. So you got a freezer full of soup portions and veggie burgers, and then just keep a big salad in the fridge.
yeah,
And everything you make, if you make a casserole, cut it up and half of it, put it in containers and freeze it. And
right.
so if you need to get another little freezer from Walmart for 90 bucks and just fill it up with frozen soups and casseroles and chilies and things and make life easy for yourself. And this is a matter of keeping a salad going in the fridge. You can make no oil salad dressings in 30 seconds in the blender. And
I like to use hummus. I'll take, it's easy
hummus is
to make,
lovely.
and I
Absolutely.
put a little bit of water in it. It's a wonderful salad dressing. You can spice it up, and chickpeas are so healthy.
Excellent. Absolutely. And
So
so
the
the
another
more you
insight,
do it, the easier it gets, the easier it
right.
gets.
And it's
Yeah.
also important about gut health. Another thing that I have a presentation which I didn't do because we have you here and you're much better than that. But about gut health, how important the gut biome is with plant-based foods and how animal products actually are really bad for your gut biome. And your gut biome is responsible for your mood, for immunity, for so many things that we don't even think about. It actually makes the serotonin made in our gut.
Yes, most of the serotonin is made in our gut. It's,
That makes you feel good.
absolutely. Yeah. And again, it's the food. It's the food. I've got a plaque from my office wall here, it's the food,
I love it. Yeah.
and the second line there, it's been the food all along. The people have been struggling with their whatever, their
Uh,
weight, their joints, their gut. It's been the food all along. Eat whole plant foods, and most of these things go away.
right.
And speaking of going away, I'm going to have to go away as well.
Okay,
So
that's fine.
thanks for
Thank
the
you
invitation.
so
Thanks for
much.
doing this.
It
Thanks
was
for getting the word out.
beyond generous for you to be here. Thank you so much, Dr. Klepper.
Uh,
Clapper.
You're so welcome. I wish everyone a happy, healthy new year. Eat plants, be gentle with yourselves and everybody else, and we'll get through this year too.
Thank you.
Okay,
So
take care,
we're going
everyone.
to go on till 8 o'clock, everyone. So thank you,
Okay,
Dr. Clapper. Bye-bye.
bye-bye.
Okay. Um, here we go. Can everybody see me? I think I'm here. Here we go. Okay. So how's everybody doing? We got we got some great questions. Is there anything else anybody wants to ask me before I move on here? You got to unmute yourself if you have a question. Dora. Hi, Dora.
Hi, Nancy. How you doing?
Good. How are
I was
you?
glad to join. I wanted to, because I haven't been in touch with you in a long time. But while this was going on for the last 20 minutes, I just wanted to let everyone know I just made dinner. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh, wow. What is that? Let me get you up here on the main. Oh, that looks amazing. What's in that?
Just stuff I had in the fridge. I didn't have any plans, and I just kept grabbing things. So I've got a firm tofu that I didn't really squeeze much. I just let it brown a little bit with onions, red peppers. I got broccoli in here, cauliflower, and spinach. And I threw in some walnuts just because he reminded me, Dr. Klaper, that I needed to have some nuts.
That's great.
And what we're going to do is we're going to serve that over potatoes that I cooked about 30 minutes ago in the Instapot. So,
oh yeah, show us your Instapot. The Instapot is a wonderful kitchen tool to have.
So
can you show it? Can you show us your Instapot? There, while you're up, because mine's in the kitchen. Okay, they make small versions of this, and then there's
this is a big version.
One. You can get one that's half that size. You can get other kinds of models, but the Instapot seems to be a favorite with a lot of people. And they also now have an air fryer lid for that too. Now really? I have one.
Well, that's my air fryers right there too. Oh.
Okay.
So you could, I'm just saying, the point was that I didn't have any plans for dinner and I just take stuff out of the fridge.
Oh, wow.
And one of the other, here's another tip. I've been doing this 15 years, everybody. Here's another tip. I have in my freezer, I made it the other day. 8 flour tortillas wrapped up with, this is the fastest meal to say to somebody in your house, hey, I'm not cooking dinner. Have a burrito.
Right.
You nuke it then for a couple minutes, 3, and then put it in a nonstick skillet and then put some salsa over it. And you're good to go.
Wow.
And it's just beans and rice and sweet potatoes that I cooked in the Instapot. And I took a packaged Mexican seasoning that's got, you know, all them good Mexican flavors and tossed that in with it. And
yeah, the seasoning
got a
are
lot
really a
left
key.
over.
And honestly, meat is the same way. People have to season their meat, and they season it with plant foods. I mean, really, most of the
Exactly.
flavor and variety comes with plant foods. And if you look at that dish, you'll notice all the color, all the color, all the color is in plant foods. If you took a piece of meat and first of all, the animal's body starts to decay the moment they're killed. So that meat has to be treated with chemicals and gases and colorings, because if you know, ate it naturally, you wouldn't be able, it would be decayed. It would be this ground green, ugly, awful thing, you know? So
Yeah.
there's really no such thing as fresh meat. And then when you go into the plant-based food field, it's all fresh, it's all living. Like even the root vegetables, I've had seen carrots start to root, and I've planted potatoes and that I've just gotten from the store. So everything we're eating is really alive and fresh. You know, 15 years, Dora, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I can't believe how many people I've met that have been vegan or plant-based for like 10, 20, 30, 40 years. And I say, how did you do it? How did you do it all this time? Because it's so much easier now, you know?
I know, but 20 years ago, this is how I would have eaten, because I just beans and rice in a burrito.
Yeah.
Because I traveled and I worked full time, and I know how hard it is. So having some packaged foods that I can go to, I call it vegan convenience foods, is a great transition food, but it's also gives us a break from, you know, for me, it's like eating out.
Right. Right. Yeah. And there are some, like I mentioned with Dr. Klaper before, I keep wanting to say Klaper, Dr. Klaper, that there are some really good vegan, like veggie burgers out, and you kind of have to find your way through them because there's so many. Some of them I like, some of them are awful. There's like portobello mushroom burgers. And I look at the ingredients, and if you can see, it's still whole foods. It's just been, you know, glopped together and put in the burger patty. But there's some wonderful brands out there. And I don't, you know, have a list of them now, but there are really some great ones, and they're not expensive. You can get like a package of 3 for maybe $6, and that's really cheap, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, there's lots of options right now. It's just
and I also wanted to talk about going out to eat. Before I do, does anybody have a question that you'd like to put into? Someone said you planted some hot peppers. Anybody have any? I wanted to go into a little bit about dining out, and we're starting, actually it's 7:42. We're starting to run out of time. I think we covered enough health with Dr. Klaper, and I had no idea. I was so glad that he was going to stay on that long. I thought he might be here for 10, 15 minutes, but I guess when you get him going, you can't stop him, right? He's like I said, he's been in so many documentaries, and he's just extremely, I love his practical approach. He's very approachable, very relatable. And it's so important too to bring the element of the animals in. I know some people start to back away when you start talking about, oh, the animals and animal rights, animal cruelty, and they're like, I don't want to talk to me about that, you know. But yet, if you were to ask any person other than somebody who's crazy, is it okay, in your opinion, to be cruel to animals? Everyone would say no. They'll say, of course not. But this disconnect that we have with our food. And the reason I mention that is because the differentiation I make between plant-based and vegan is quite often when people don't take the ethical part in consideration, they often are not 100%. And while you know, you don't really want to come up to people and say all or nothing, or, you know, go away. But it really is important to know that the ultimate goal, the very, very best thing we can do, is to go 100%. And what I find when people do that is they kind of have like a big wall up about that. And they say, well, I don't really care about the animals, and people who are vegan, they're not healthy. And I've seen some of these discussions going on, thinking, that's not true. Like, sure, there's people that are going to be eating junk food, and it's great that there is plenty of vegan junk food if you want it. There's plenty of junk food that's not vegan too, but my point being that all of those things, and when Nigel was talking about food justice and the environment, I mean, there's so many issues that we have here. And what I might do is pull up the presentation that I've made here before, which I can do another time. I'd like to schedule another one. I might do one of these again another month. I did one in December, and I really went through a whole presentation, but basically everything was covered with Dr. Klaper. And so anyway, any other, so I have another poll, and I'm going to do this poll. I'm going to be, if you put your name in here, if you have not pre-registered, if someone gave you the link, please, you can privately send me your name and email address so I can follow up with you. I'm only going to send one email address. And another thing I wanted to mention before I forget is I have a business called BotaniCuisine, and I'll go ahead and pull that up. And that's how I'm doing the plant-powered meat month through. This is really this little meeting get together is with plant-powered meat month for Veganuary. And so it's all about plant source dining outreach that I have. And I have a monthly flyer that I like to send out, and it's one page. I design it, and it's just to stay in touch with people. It gives some people little tips, little tricks. People, know what's going on. There's so many different events happening now, especially online. And then I also, locally, I do events here, and I've had booths at markets, so I like to keep in touch with people that way. And my thing is to try to get more plant-based, vegan-friendly foods in restaurants. It's really important that we have that, because like you were saying earlier, somebody was saying, when you go out with your friends and then everybody's eating off the menu, and the menu is like full of all animal products, and it can be very stressful. I mean, some people, they just, that's why they just say, well, I'm just flexitarian then, just that's just the best they can do. And I can empathize with that. I really can. I'll go into a place and have salads and sides, but I don't think it's realistic to expect everybody to always do that. So my, mission kind of right now is to try to help get more of these healthy and comfort foods too into, restaurants. They're seeing a lot in stores, but not restaurants. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and share the screen really quickly. This is my website. You can see it here. Let me open up the window a little bit more here. And there's a plant-powered meat month. And on here, I have a section of food enthusiasts, and I have, here's one section of ingredient substitutions. And this is something you can go on the website and you can download it, click on it and download it. I believe you can. And this is a wonderful little chart to help people, how do I transition? How do I replace this with that? There's a list of egg substitutes, but you have to be careful because it really depends on what you're making. And one of the things I found, flax, they have flax here. Yeah, ground flaxseed and 3 tablespoons of water. That's the equivalent of an egg. And it does a lot of the same things an egg with baking. Like I've made muffins and cakes and breads and things like that. I even did it with pancakes, which really didn't need it. And then there are just some meat substitute suggestions and some dairy alternatives there. Now, the other thing is I have a flyer here, a page about enjoying plant-based foods. And there's a wonderful video here that I actually wanted to play a little excerpt, but I don't know if we're going to have time. But what I'd rather do is get the next poll up. So I'm going to stop sharing. I have another poll here. And the question is, what are you most interested in learning about? If people could, I know, we've covered a lot of areas, so I think it's actually a good time to find out from you. If you could just complete the poll. Like I said, it's completely anonymous. I have no idea who's saying what. Can you all see the poll there? because nobody's doing anything yet with it. We got 7 people left here. So just, oh, there you go. So you can check all that apply. And I look at it as information, like what's important to people and how can I help provide information or help direct people to places that I think will provide the most valid, the most objective, and the most salient sources of information, And so far we've got health and resource conservation the most, and that's an important thing. People usually don't think about that, like resource and wildlife conservation together. We think of, the wildlife as being something out there, like they're out there and we, we do what we do and neither the twain shall meet, but we don't realize that how much the entire ecosystem depends upon a healthy wildlife. And so far, I think the statistic, we've wiped out like half of the natural wildlife in the world. And we have in the world, in this country, we get about 9 to 10 billion farmed land animals a year in the US still. And in the world, it's something around 70 billion. And I've noticed these conversations, the environment and conservation is a pretty big topic now. Some people are saying, well, there's too many people. And my question is, really, there's too many people? There's 7.3 or 4 billion people and there's 70 billion land animals. Maybe we should like pull back on the land animals that we're farming. Maybe we should do that instead of try to say more people. It's a much broader subject than that, but so I won't start going into my soapbox on that one. But really, there is enough land, and even right now with the food we're growing, with the produce that we're growing, we could feed the world right now with what we have. So let's see. The email. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the raffle now, and it's a $10 gift certificate to the land of Kush. So let me see here. I'm going to do. Okay, we've got 7 people. Raffle number generator. So it can get online here. Raffle number generator. Random drawings. Whoops. Wait a minute. Number picker wheel. Okay, here we go. So enter 1 through 7. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you. I'm going to share my screen. Oops. I'm going to